comrades, this is Little Trotsky attempting the first real attempt at a scripted video. You don't want to know how many cuts this has taken. You really don't. Anyway, what I'm going to be trying to examine is the pamphlet Socialism Made Easy. Essentially what it is, it was written by James Connolly, who was an Irish revolutionary at the turn of the 20th century. Helped found the Irish Labour Party, the Transport and General Workers Union, led several major strikes, and was one of the leaders of the Easter Rising, for which he sadly got executed for taking part in, which was an attempt to declare Ireland independent in 1916 in the middle of the First World War. They'd have killed him whenever they did it, obviously, but First World War was a good excuse to do it. So what this pamphlet was made, it was made in 1909, targeted primarily at the Irish community of the US. From what I could tell, it was published in New York, where there was a large Irish population, and it's a response to what common arguments against socialism. In case you haven't worked out, I am a socialist, a member of the Socialist Party, which is a part of the Committee for Workers International. I'm what can be called a Trotskyist, a trot, which a lot of people describe as something derogatory. I can take this as a compliment, because I stand for a fair society, for decent wages, a world that works for working class people, not for that of profit. I don't think that's a bad thing. So this is a response to a lot of common arguments against socialism. Some of them are a little bit out of date, but it's a minority. Most of these are completely and utterly relevant even today. I'm going to try and deal with them as quickly as humanly possible. Bear in mind I've not been that succinct because I've already got 2 minutes 34 on the recorded. So even if I manage to start managing to edit this, it's not going to be that short. So the first argument is one that's particularly up to date. Socialism is a foreign import, and it's basically the same argument that's given with syphilis. I guess called the English disease by the French, or the French disease by the English, the Italian disease by the Spanish, the German disease by the Italians. You know, everyone wants to blame it on someone else, as some sort of to make it nasty and foreign sounding and more evil. Or in the case of syphilis, as a slander against the people who already didn't like. But in the case of socialism, is to make it sound scary and foreign and something that, you know, if you are for socialism, you're a traitor. Doesn't really get used much now these days. The updated version is more connected to Stalinism, and if I ever get around doing more videos, I'll deal with Stalinism probably in depth, hopefully in depth. The second argument is a little bit more relevant. It's, well, I am not interested in socialism. This country is good enough for me. He brings up the issue of a railway called the Moscow Window-Rheidensk Railway. Just as an example, it's a railway entirely in Russia, being built in 1899, 1900, that, as he said, you'd think this concerned the Russian people only, that our patriotic capitalist class, always so ready to declare war against the working class socialists with internationalist sympathies, would never look or touch it. And yet, was in all the papers, all the portfolio, you know, invest in this railway in Russia, even though you're Irish, you've never been anywhere near Russia in your life. In the same manner, he talked about the 1905 Russian Revolution, which was the one that everyone knew about in 1909. The English Tsar didn't have any trouble getting funding from America to crush the revolution, to not even try and get a socialist revolution necessarily, to, you know, to continue to repress, to continue the rule of the Tsar. Essentially, socialism and socialists have to be internationalists because, and not only because, but one of the main reasons is because capitalism is internationalist. your boss, you might be in a relatively small company where you actually know your boss, but he's probably taken a loan out from a bank to be in that, and that bank is owned by a lot of shareholders. No shareholders come from all over the world. And if you want policies to, say, raise your wages, and that's across the board, then the shareholders of that bank are going to say, well, no, and we're going to withdraw of the credit that we give to that business, so we'll bankrupt your business if you make life better, because that will affect our dividends. And from all over the world, so you can't deal with it just in one country. You have to be internationalist in your outlook. The worker taking strike in China is against Foxconn, which works for Apple. So if you work for Apple and are being ripped off by being paid a crap wage in the UK, what reason would you not have for supporting a striking worker in China? Because their boss is exactly the same. The third argument, but the socialist proposals, they say, would destroy the individual character of the worker. He would live in the community instead of his own efforts. Basic updated version of this: welfare state makes everyone scroungers. Everyone would be really lazy if you gave them everything. You have to take away this crutch of the welfare state. His reaction to this is fairly straightforward. Well, the rich already have pensions, they have private pensions. Even in this time, even in 1909, this was the case. This has been the case for a long time. It's a state pension that's opposed. But as he says, I know a number of people who draw old age pensions, and it doesn't do them a bit of harm. The royal families all have pensions, and they don't get any harm from it either. Royal babies draw pension and milk at the same time. They were told the same sort of thing these days, like, we need to raise the pension age because we can't really afford to pay these people to, enjoy the last years of their life. Other people are lazy or selfish for, not being able to find, not be willing to work absolutely crap rather than just moderately crap jobs. His box is basically an excuse for big businesses not to pay more taxes, or to try and defend themselves. Even in many countries where they've implemented these sort of things like a welfare state, is because they're afraid of working class people. It was like Bismarck in the 1800s in Germany set a sort of unemployment benefits, primarily because there was a large socialist movement in Germany, and he was hoping that by doing a little bit of socialism he could weaken the move for abolishing capitalism. He put a lot of effort to create a capitalist Germany and to unite all the different confederacies. He didn't necessarily want it to become socialist afterwards. Fourth argument, let's be practical. We want something practical, and I know that I can't say my arms. Please don't take the piss too much. It's YouTube, I will take the piss a little bit. This is nothing new. This is nothing that no one's ever not heard of in various forms. You've got to be realistic, or you just thinking of the American election out recently. You can't think of a third party. You've got to be practical about this. You've got to vote for the lesser evil, and that, in Connolly's words, has done more service in the cause of oppression than all of its supporters of active oppression. It's the people don't like to be thought of as impractical. So while generally often distrusting or even seriously disliking, this is very, very relevant to the American election as this taken place, of a political party, they won't leave them or vote for them. Just in the hope that practicality will lead to better results than actual honesty and having some level of principles. Simple truth is, it doesn't. They do get, a couple of reforms here and there, but frankly, a revolutionary party without a majority in government can achieve more, far more, than a practical orthodox right-wing party can in government, because the right wing won't be aiming to make life better for their voters. They'll be aiming to make the world a better place for themselves and their financial backers, for the most part at least. Best example, I've got 3 examples that I will probably better if I just link them in the description, but Charles I in Seattle, the poll tax in the 1990, around the year 1990, and the water charges in Ireland, all 3 of which were major struggles that were supported in words by the official, left party like Democrats, Labour Party, Sinn Féin, but did not actually achieve. They did not achieve the defeat of these attacks, with the gaining of $15 an hour as a minimum wage. It was down to the mass movement of ordinary working class people, and the people who are willing to organise that sort of struggle and know how to organise that sort of struggle, who will use their elected positions as a platform to force that struggle onwards, to drive that struggle and to give it confidence and a chance. And I have named 3 struggles that my party's international organisation has been involved in. The 5th argument: would you confiscate the property of the capitalist class and rob men of that which they have perhaps worked a whole lifetime to accumulate? I'm just going to quote Connolly on this because I love the answer. Yes, sir, and certainly not. Because there's a difference between being a member of the capitalist class and having property and shares, and being a hard worker. Because let's be frank, if Mike Ashley, the owner of Sports Direct, doesn't really have to work that hard. He has money that is invested into Sports Direct. His workers work hard in making money for him. He leaches up the profit of that. Capitalism basically, ultimately, is based on naked, continuous theft. And it's ultimately down to the wealth created by working class people. There's the middle class of all of this, which isn't the middle class as the official British system kind of deals it. It's not based on wealth, it's based on how you work. If you're a wage worker, essentially you're the proletariat, or in that vague class. Obviously it's more complicated than that. And if you are an owner of a large firm, you're in the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class, or own large amounts of shares, you're a part owner of that. If, however, you own a small business that you're basically, or self-employed, or own a handful of people, then you're in what gets classed as the petty bourgeoisie. You're not a capitalist in your own right. You put some work in yourself, but you're not part of the international capitalist class. Plenty may aspire to be, and a lot of those people are people who kind of support the capitalist system because it makes, there's that dream that one day I'll make it, I'll be one of them. Connolly takes this down a little bit. Basically, confiscation is guaranteed for any business owner outside the trust meaning like the big firms, the FTSE 100 for example. If he was also continuing to support the capitalist order after having worked to establish a business on what he imagined to be a sound foundation, then on some fine day the trust will enter into competition with him, will invade his market to use their enormous capital to undersell him, ruin his prices, take his customers for him, and finally drive him into bankruptcy. Every time the businessman who's not a trust magnate votes for capitalism, he is voting to prepare that fate for himself. And if you think about any corner shop competing with Tesco's or Asda or Lidl, then you might see a little bit about what I mean, about what Connolly meant by that. Small businesses account for a smaller and smaller proportion of the national income. Despite small businesses being 99% of businesses, they account for less than half of national GDP. because that small number of large businesses accumulates a larger proportion of the national wealth towards itself and has the power to bankrupt any industry that it feels like it and take it over simply by setting up shop and competing and underselling that person. And I'll get into that in another video if I ever get the chance to do so. So the choice Connolly puts is between confiscation under socialism or confiscation under capitalism. With confiscation to socialism, at least that goes towards for the good of society, and you'll get it back, essentially. You'd probably even be allowed to run it under his conception. Socialist Party doesn't even go that far. We don't think it's necessary to nationalise every fish and chip shop, or every takeaway, every small corner shop. Nationalise commanding heights of the economy. And there's an article by Leon Trotsky, written in 1934, called If America Should Go Communist, and I generally agree with, and it actually deals with how you could get voluntary collectivization, how you could get small businesses to essentially try out socialism without any stick, without any sort of penalties for not joining in, and makes the point that, you know, small farmers, small business owners aren't stupid. They'll work out that it's more beneficial to be part of the socialist collective system over time than to go it alone, and you'll get a sort of voluntary merging and a slow development of full socialism in that condition. Obviously probably not going to be a straightforward procedure, it's also going to be bumpy, but for small business owners, socialism shouldn't be no threat whatsoever. Even not in the short view or the long view. In fact, will probably be better at securing this their foundation because they don't have to compete in the same way with large companies, and they probably get subsidised. Frankly, if you're part of a collective, you probably get subsidised to pay decent wages to your workers. Before I ramble, I'm going to rush into the next point, which deals with the issue of what I said about capitalism being about theft and exploitation. But it is their property. Why should socialists confiscate it? Connolly looks at the Coats Thread Company of Portec at Rhode Island, just literally, as far as I can tell, picks a random company that he can get a decent amount of information for. And he points out that the profit margin is 20%. And he explains that profit, as socialists see it, is created by those workers. Wealth is created by workers, and after all the wealth is paid for everything that's left, workers create all this wealth, and you take off the amount for the parts and the wages, and then what's left is profit. And essentially this is profit that the working class people have made. If you pay to make a table, you've made a table. But if someone who has never touched that table takes like half your wages from you, essentially, if you're paid £100 to make a table and that table's worth 200 quid, maybe the wood's worth maybe 60 quid, and all the tools for it takes up to maybe 70, 80 quid per table. Well, he's just taking 20 quid for doing nothing, except for happening to own the official business for it. And that's basically capitalism in a nutshell. It's theft. Raw daily theft. Oh, the capitalist has anxieties too, and the worker often has a good time. This is an argument that is kind of brought up a little bit. Usually, like, you know, millionaires work hard for their money; they deserve to have it. And the simple fact is that their worries are nothing like the worries of an ordinary working class person. They may indeed have stresses, I won't deny that, but they never have to worry about becoming homeless. They don't have to worry about being unemployed or have the continuous fear of bullying by their bosses in the way that a working class person does. And let's not forget, in 1909 there was, until actually just 50 years ago, there was the fear of the poorhouse, the workhouse. A capitalist doesn't have to fear, a multi-millionaire doesn't have to fear not having enough food, or what about paying bills in anything like the same way. And I think I talked a little bit about the need. Do they really deserve to have 20,000 times the amount of money? Do they work 20,000 times harder than the average person? No, they don't. That's as easy a summary as I can give to them. I'd recommend you reading it because it's really well written. 9. But socialism is against religion. I can't be a Christian and a socialist. I can't be a socialist and a Christian. In any case, this is still very, very much up to date, and it's actually something that can be aimed as much against socialists as it can against slightly right-wing conservative religious people, and religious people generally. People are told that like socialism would destroy religion altogether, and they force you to try to refuse to be force you to be an atheist. I'm saying this as an atheist who's gone through a phase of kind of blaming religion for the problems of the world. Now I see the religious problems as like terrorism, for example, by groups like Al-Qaeda, more of a symptom of the larger social problems than of the religion itself being a problem. But there's some socialists who kind of think, we should get rid of all religions, it would make the world a better place. Well, not if you force it. But there's not necessarily contradiction between being religious and a socialist. However, a lot of states have religions that are essentially fully supportive of the states, especially organised churches. The Catholic Church has had a habit of supporting a number of dictators because they're good Catholics. The Orthodox Church, the reason that was repressed was because they actively supported the Tsar and actively, very strongly opposed socialism. And Connolly is talking about Catholicism specifically because he was a Catholic, and the Catholic Church was very, very anti-socialist. Still is to an extent, but not. But the Catholic Church in the 20s and 30s was supportive of full-on crackdowns against socialism, supporting fascism to do that. In Spain and Italy especially. Whether it's exactly where socialism is a bread and butter question, it's a question of the stomach. It's going to be settled in the factories, mines and ballot boxes of this country, not at the altar. But also that right-wing churches tend to be supportive of the state, of the status quo, and of the capitalist even when these people are pieces of shit, frankly, when they're despicable human beings. So his point was that socialists can often find themselves leaving a church because of the attitude of the hierarchy of the church or of the local priest, not because socialists have brainwashed the person into being an atheist. There's a little bit of a correlation with religion and its ties to the state in general. You're talking about things like it doesn't just apply to Christianity, it applies, I've mentioned Islam, there are plenty of ties to the state. In Iran is the most obvious one, where the church hierarchy is part of the government, and frankly Iran a theocracy with a lot of democratic concessions in it, whereas Saudi Arabia openly propagates Wahhabism and spreads it, which is like the baseline form of Sunnism. That's the basis for jihadism, like ISIS, Al-Qaeda and all of that. Take the notes from that interpretation of Islam, but they're tied to the state and conservatism. And India uses Hinduism to try and bolster its nationalism as a part of it. That's about as deep as I can possibly get into this, because goddamn, this is already twice as long as I was hoping it would be. The final bit is about national independence, and as someone who's Welsh, this really hits close to home, because while he's obviously talking about Irish independence, because Irish Home Rule was a big thing at the time, it's very relevant to independence movements across the world right now, which is essentially, in summary, what are the terms of this independence? Can you free Ireland and be a nation for all classes? Well, what would that mean? You defend all classes. Well, that means you also defend the big business owner, the landlord who is evicting you. Well, he's also Irish. He's from your country. Well, you're not going to kill him? No, he's on your side. It's a weakness of cross-class movements, of siding with your oppressor to fight for a common goal because they don't want to change. An English worker, a Polish worker, a Welsh worker have the same basic worries. Can I pay my rent on time? Am I going to get enough food on the table? Am I being paid enough? And am I comfortable? Is there enough for my kids? Is there a good school for them to go to? What happens if I get ill? Am I going to get looked after? These are basic concerns that working class people have, because it's a question of the bread and butter. It's a material question. Independence on its own doesn't solve that, so you've got to ask what terms you're going to solve it, because the example wasn't followed out, and sadly Connolly got killed after the 1916 Rising, so wasn't able to make his mark on the Irish independence struggle. So the Irish small capitalist class took hold. Even like the Sinn Féin existed, Sinn Féin and the Labour Party existed before either Fianna Fáil or Fianna Gael, the main two ruling parties in Ireland. They were set up from the independence itself. They dominate Irish politics and have done. And only on the last elections, they combined vote down to 50% of the combined vote. They usually had 80-90%. Because Labour took a back seat, and Ireland remained, even after independence, enthralled to the whims of British capitalism. Its investors, most of its investors were American or British. So if they didn't like the policy of the Irish government, they could control that. The government of the policy don't want to draw the funding out of it until it does what you want. So Connolly draws that with the obvious point: if you want to get Ireland, if you want to get independence for your country, you can't just stick to independence. You can't just go say free Ireland and then go back to the slums as you were before. You have to go further. The independence movement can only be carried through with socialist measures to really guarantee a decent standard of living for all the citizens of that country. And thus, socialism is necessary for an independence movement, for all or for none. The last words in that pamphlet. Anyway, I really like this pamphlet. It's one of the first pamphlets I read. I'd recommend it if you can get a hold of it. Please do. It's I've linked in the description to a link to the pamphlet available on Marxist.net website. You can read it. It also has the second part, part 2 and 3. So I'll link that in the description. And I would recommend that anyone reads this. Is a relatively easy to read opening tracts and some of the counter, and it deals with some of the counter arguments that you hear from people all the time. So I'd recommend that you have a look at it and enjoy. So yeah, this is my first attempt at a video. So let me know what you think. If they agree, disagree, I'd really like to hear about that. Let me know about the point I could have made better, or if you think I got positive comments as well. Let me know what I got right. Also, share, comment, subscribe, like, all those basic metric things. That means I'm more likely to turn up in other people's feeds. If you like what I've been saying and agree what I've been saying, then do subscribe to my channel. I'll be slowly, once I'll be getting used to doing these, I might get to do these more regularly. I certainly hope to. I'm going to slowly invest in a couple of things that will make these more high quality, as well as suggestions for the topics of pamphlets. Do you think I can summarise? I'll be dealing with more topics. I've got a couple of thoughts in my head about where to sort of carry on. I'm going to be doing a couple of different types of videos. So those are basic thoughts for my channel. So yeah, any suggestions for improvements, particularly cheap, free MP4 compatible editing software, because especially if this is in two choppy parts, you know that I have failed miserably to find anything. So I value your suggestion on that. And yes, and take care, internet. Thank you, Converts, for listening.